brief history of the events leading thereto, written on the eve of his execution by Louis d'Escoing Mazzini, 10th Duke of Chalfont, who ventures to hope that it may prove not uninteresting to those who remain to read it.
Hi, I'm Tye Justis, and in this episode I'm discussing one of the blackest classic dark comedies to ever come out of the UK, Kind Hearts and Coronets, where the hero is actually a serial killer. Stay tuned. British poet Alfred Lord Tennyson's Lady Claire Vere de Vere states, "Kind hearts are more than coronets, and simple fate than Norman blood," which was a scathing rebuke of the aristocratic de Vere family to whom he was close to. The film Kind Hearts and Coronets is an equally scathing rebuke of the aristocracy the film takes place in. Kind Hearts premiered in 1949, was produced by Ealing Studios, directed by Robert Hammer, written by Hammer and John Dighton, and stars Dennis Price, Joan Greenwood, Valerie Hobson, and Alec Guinness, who actually plays 9 separate characters in the film. The story is loosely based on the novel Israel Rank, the autobiography of a criminal. This film made definite deviations from the novel, which, as it turns out, was subtly racist and sometimes downright anti-Semitic. Kind Hearts and Coronets, the film, is a tale of one son's revenge on a family who shunned his mother for marrying beneath her class, leaving her penniless. Said family go as far as to deny her a proper burial after she dies prematurely. This also cuts her son off of any chance of inheritance or class distinction in a world where upward mobility between classes was almost impossible. Now a man, the son, Louis, exacts his revenge and, spoiler alert, murders his relatives who stand in the way of his inheritance.
The D'Escoings had not only wronged my mother, they were the obstacle between me and all that I wanted. The more I thought of them, these people whom I had studied until I knew their names and histories as well as I knew my own, the more they became monsters of arrogance and cruelty, whose only function in the world was to deprive me of my birthright.
Sounds reasonable to me. Not saying I'd go that far, murder relatives. Although... Louis's father, for those who are wondering, died the moment he was born.
Born of an English mother and Italian father, who succumbed to a heart attack at the moment of first setting eyes on me.
And the best part of this film? He gets away with it. Well, at least in the original British ending. For American audiences, 6 minutes had to be cut out of the film and a complete alternate ending had to be filmed to appease American censors, who at the time would not allow criminals to get away with criminal activity in the movies. The tacked-on American ending is usually included on all home video releases for comparison.
Your Grace, I represent the magazine Titbits, by whom I am commissioned to approach you for the publication rights of your memoirs.
My memoir? My memoir? My memoir? Well,
Yeah?
In an era of still very restrictive production codes, this film got a general release in the UK, where the main character not only offs most of his blood relations, but he gets away with it too. I personally find that refreshing. What? No, it's mostly wrong, but mostly wrong. What? All the time? Apparently it's wrong all the time. What? Guinness, of course, was brilliant, as was the rest of the cast, but Sir Alec was different, fun, and unique in every character and really gets to stretch. This film is the blackest classic dark comedy. When you watch it, you root for the murderer, Louis, who is technically a serial killer. But can you blame him? Even though he's murdering his relatives, as the audience, we don't care. At least I don't. I should probably see a professional about that. Anyway, we even cheer him on. After all, he and his mother were cheated out of everything they were entitled to by selfish, spoiled, entitled elitists who left him and his mother to fend for themselves and eventually die with nothing. Luckily, this masterpiece has survived in its entirety, original ending and all. In the UK, through companies like Optimum and Studio Canal, there have been great 2K and 4K restorations for their Blu-ray and DVD releases. The 70th anniversary Blu-ray is from the latest 4K restoration and is almost picture-perfect, though Region B locked. For Region A countries like the United States and Canada, the Kino Blu-ray is a nice release, though it only sports the 2K restoration and not the newer 4K like it claims. The Criterion DVD is also a nice, though out of print, Region A option with a good supplemental section. The Kino release also comes with an exclusive audio commentary track that is different from the archive commentary used on the Studio Canal 70th Anniversary Edition. Now, this was the year George Orwell's 1984 was released, and tastes were changing in 1949 post-war England. This film was beginning to herald in a new era for leniency in film production. Though the revolutions of violence, language, and nudity in the movies were still at least a decade away, this film projected one popular archetype to come: the anti-hero. A character that may not be the traditional good guy, but one that audiences relate to and even root for against all odds. It can be argued that the American film noir paved the way for this trend a few years before, but in the American film experience, the noir hero rarely, if ever, won the day, let alone walked away with everything they ever grafted for, if they could walk away at all. In this film, the main character, Louis, takes the law and destiny into his own hands, in spite of what his society, his family, or even his God expects of him. He does this in order to get what he believes is rightfully his. Then in the end, he creates his own justice, like Bronson in Death Wish, only British and genteel. In a way, this film was also a very polite way of thumbing one's nose at the wealthy, corrupt elite who expected good people, or poor people as it were, to simply chin up and take whatever abuse or injustice was thrown at them. A message just as needed today. Just without the murder parts. And just for the sake of clarity, murder is bad. Let's just reiterate that: murder, bad. Don't do. Use your words. And then when you run out of words, use your... The love triangle formed by the conniving, greedy, status-seeking Sabella, the seraphic, tea-toting moralist, Edith, and the protagonist is one that ends up almost ruining everything for Louis. Luckily, this battle between the Madonna and the whore motif plays out in his favor, also showcasing Sabella as a much more serious villain than the killer Louis, who himself seems a little taken aback by her cold, calculating self-centeredness. The triangle also highlights the themes of sexual repression in Louis before he begins his chopping down of the family tree. Only after getting closer to his goal is he given the opportunity to take what he wants from the ever-manipulative Sabella as she witnesses his ascension of the family crest. At the end of his reign of familial execution, Louis does meet his saving grace, Edith, very much the representation of his physical and possible spiritual salvation. The only question that's left is, will he be able to make the right choice before his world ends at the end of a rope? Yes, in the film's original form anyway. In the American version, the audience is left with no doubt that he'll hang for his crimes. As for the audio commentary from Kino by film historian Kat Ellinger, it is end-to-end complete and a very strong commentary. She tends to see the protagonist as a sociopath or psychopath. She vacillates between those two designations and speaks of him as more of a criminal than an anti-hero. The commentators on the UK archival audio commentary, critics Peter Bradshaw, Terence Davies, and Matthew Guinness, you guessed it, Alec Guinness's son, see the character as more of having a controlled hatred as his motivation for revenge, not necessarily him being a psychopath, which I tend to agree with. Serial killer, yes. Psycho or sociopath? Probably not. Both commentaries are very informative and are scene-specific, though Ellinger's never leaves gaps in her annotation, while Bradshaw, Davies, and Guinness, though there are 3 of them, do frequently pause throughout and get a little lost in the film as they watch it through their commentary. Their exuberance for the film is fun to hear, but toward the end of the film they speak very little. Ellinger's commentary, on the other hand, is complete, interesting, fact-filled, and very academically presented on the Kino release. That being said, the trio on the UK release speak with authority and some factual information as well at the beginning of their commentary, but exhibit frequent elongated pauses and silences toward the end. From the original Criterion DVD through the Studio Canal 70th Anniversary Blu-ray release, the supplements are pretty much the same, except for the new commentary by Kino and the bonus content for Studio Canal's anniversary release alongside its new 4K restoration that's close to flawless. I love this film, and watching it never feels like a chore. It always feels fresh and alive, no matter how many times you've seen it before. And one thing about this film is that it always satisfies no matter what, and to be honest, it's damn near perfect. Except for this part.
Do you remember in the old days how we used to play eeny, meeny, miny, mo?
Catch a nigger by his toe.
If he hollers, let him go. Out goes he. Quite a lot of little niggers have gone out, haven't they, one way or another? And every one of them a Gascoigne.
Now, Kind Hearts and Coronets is, of course, a product of its time. That doesn't change the fact that what was wrong then is still wrong now. But even American audiences in 1949 understood that that word was inappropriate. And so for the American cut, the word was changed to soldier, and not the racial slur that's heard in the original British version. Both sets of commentaries do address that part as well, thankfully not glossing over it. Kind Hearts and Coronets is a subversive, highly entertaining satire that is just as entertaining today as it was in 1949, which explains why it's always on the top 100 lists of the greatest films ever made. I'm Tye Justis, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. The book Forever Ealing, a celebration of the great British film studio by George Perry, is a great reference for anyone interested in the history of this film or any of the others made at this iconic British film factory during its heyday.